Clearly, he was a top-tier music producer, with countless hit songs under his belt. Yet, he only wanted to be a freeloading leech. Off of his younger sister in a girl group, he thought he'd spend the rest of his life drifting along. Just like that. But then his sister, suddenly, during a home live stream, discovered the song he had written, and even sang it right in front of the entire online audience. At this moment, in a rather cozily decorated bedroom, he just buried his face into a slightly deflated pillow, letting out a satisfied sound. Compared to his past life of staying awake for 72 hours straight before dropping dead for a top music producer, the act of sleeping in until naturally waking up on a quiet afternoon like this was truly the greatest blessing from God. But right there in the living room, just one wall away from the bedroom, the scene at this moment was the complete opposite of his leisure. Good afternoon, everyone. It's your girl Wan Wan here. Yeah, Wan Wan was facing the phone placed behind the ring light. In front of the lens, she forced a sweet, energetic smile. In a beautiful outfit, her lively appearance radiated youthful vibes. But if one just looked closely, the anxiety and exhaustion could be spotted. Hidden deep within her eyes, the top right corner of the phone screen displayed the number 3,204 viewers. For an artist who had debuted and signed with a big company as an idol, these stats were truly too pathetic to look at. Today I'll show everyone. At this point, Ye Wan Wan paused. The manager's roar from last night still echoed in her ears. Ye Wan Wan, if your live stream hours this week don't meet the quota, or if your gift revenue is still at the bottom of the rankings, then the company will consider terminating your contract. You'd better figure it out yourself. Ye Wan Wan gritted her teeth, glancing around the cramped, messy living room, trying to find a topic to stall for time. Her eyes swept over the mountain of dirty laundry on the sofa and the half-finished cold cola on the coffee table, finally stopping at a corner of the coffee table. Underneath a cup of instant noodles was a black notebook, her gaze fixed on it. Today, I'm taking everyone on a surprise inspection of my useless older brother's pigsty. Ye Wan Wan awkwardly changed the subject, turning the lens toward the cluttered coffee table. Look, everyone. This is the reality of the lying flat youth. Nowadays, instant noodles paired with cola, infinite power. The comments, which were originally sparse, suddenly became a bit more lively. Same world, same older brother. Is this the person you mentioned? The brother you have to support. This is way too messy. Wan Wan, aren't you going to help clean up? Ye Wan Wan reached out to grab that noodle cup, intending to throw it in the trash. Her hand slipped and the black notebook under the cup was pulled along with it, falling to the ground with a thud coincidentally opening to a page. Ye Wan Wan curiously picked it up, originally intending to just fold it back up, but her eyes were caught by the flamboyant dancing handwriting on the page. There were lines of lyrics arranged neatly with dense notations for chords written beside them. What is this? Ye Wan Wan subconsciously read the title aloud. Then she leaned in close to the lens, so the audience in the live stream room could also clearly see the writing in the notebook. Everyone, I think I found my brother's secret diary. Wait, no, it looks like song lyrics. The audience who didn't take him seriously immediately started chiming in. Even if they're lyrics, they're probably just trash. Does that loser brother actually have this kind of talent? Ye Wan Wan cleared her throat, intending to stall for time and softly read. You are the distant road, the lamp in the mist of the mountain wilderness. I am the child walking within your eyes. As soon as she read the first line, she was stunned. These lyrics flowed so naturally and were incredibly evocative. As a professionally trained singer, her professional instincts immediately kicked in. Looking at those harmonic notations, she couldn't help but softly hum along. The comments in the live stream suddenly froze for a second, then surged frantically like a broken dam. Holy crap, what song is this? It's freaking amazing. Search for the lyrics, they're nowhere online. Is this an original song? I'm begging you, don't stop. Keep singing. Even Ye Wan Wan herself was captivated by this melody. She stopped looking at the comments, completely immersed in the world that those scribbled lines created. As soon as the song ended, the live stream room completely exploded. The number of concurrent viewers skyrocketed from 3,000 to 10,000, then 50,000 and 100,000. All kinds of gift effects also began to flood the screen. The lyrics are peak. The hands of the person I hesitantly held. Please lead me to tomorrow. So touching, who wrote this? Wan Wan, did you write this? No way. This depth is definitely the work of a master. Someone Wan Wan's age couldn't write this. At this moment, Wan Wan's entire body felt a bit numb. Her fingers trembled as she stroked the notebook. She had never seen a song like this before. Even the gold-tier producers her company paid a fortune for couldn't write a soul-stirring masterpiece like this. Did my brother really write this? She muttered. Her face was full of disbelief. In her memory, since graduating from college, he had always stayed home as a leech. Every day, he only knew how to sleep and play games, occasionally going out to deliver food, just to earn money for game skins. He was the textbook definition of a lying flat loser. How could he write something like this? Right then, the bedroom door opened with a click. Yafan walked out with a sleepy face. Wan Wan, have you seen the notebook I used to prop up the table leg? I just dreamed that the new skins are on sale. I need to write it down. The atmosphere suddenly froze. Hundreds of thousands of viewers in the room were speechless, watching the vibe on the screen take a sharp turn. 1 second, it was a beautiful singer touching the heart of the internet. The next out popped a man in SpongeBob, Pajamas. Ye Wanwan stiffly turned her head back, the notebook in her hand still held in midair, perfectly facing the lens. His gaze gradually focused, first seeing the familiar black notebook in her hand, then seeing the phone set up nearby, and finally glancing at the massive barrage of comments scrolling densely across the screen. Is this the legendary older brother? What the hell is up with those SpongeBob pajamas? My illusions are shattered, but did this hobo actually write this song? Is this the legendary hidden master in the flesh? He was stunned for 3 seconds, as his sluggish brain finally began to function. That notebook was from the first year he isekai'd here, when he was truly bored to death, and his professional habits from his past life relapsed. So he casually jotted down a music library from memory. He clearly used it to prop up his instant noodles as a heat-insulating coaster. So how did it end up out here? He looked innocently at Ye Wanwan. Are you live streaming? Can I have my coaster back, please? Ye Wanwan took a deep breath and hugged the notebook tightly. Her eyes filled with complex emotions as she looked at her brother, who was usually lazy to the bone. Did you write this song, wishing? He blinked, almost instinctively switching to full denial mode. Is she kidding? Admitting it means being interrogated. Being interrogated means trouble, and trouble means no more lying flat or sleeping in. With a sincere face, he waved his hand. What, wishing? Never heard of it? That's just scrap paper neighbor Wang threw away. I just picked it up to practice my calligraphy. You know, artists always need some scrap paper for inspiration. Calligraphy? My ass, there are clearly chords written on there. If neighbor Wang knows chords, I'm a monkey. Oh, he's totally lying. Look at his eyes. He looks calm on the surface, but he's dodging the question. He ignored his sister's shocked gaze. His only thought right now was to hurry back to his room and continue his unfinished dream. He reached out to take the notebook back, but Ye Wanwan nimbly dodged him. I don't believe you. The handwriting on this is clearly yours. Besides that line about mountains and rivers being safe, and the commoner's hearth fire is exactly what you kept mumbling while drunk last week. It's over. His true identity has been exposed. The corner of his mouth twitched. The memory of an isekai'd person being too good is also a crime. Getting drunk and automatically playing bangers from his past life, he scratched his messy hair, trying to make a final struggle. Actually, I just copied it from the internet. Who even composes original music these days? It's too exhausting. Detected that the host is telling an extremely clumsy lie. System judges the lying flat action as a failure. Host is advised to show off immediately. Otherwise, today's sleep quota will be deducted. Hearing that, he cursed inwardly. This trash system, besides forcing me to become the godfather of entertainment, it's good for absolutely nothing. Refusing to show off means losing sleep time. It's literally threatening my life. He sighed and his gaze instantly changed, though the lazy loser vibe still surrounded him. Deep within his eyes, there suddenly surged an indescribable sense of sorrow and depth. He no longer tried to snatch the notebook, but instead picked up the cola on the coffee table and took a huge gulp with his head back. In that posture, he somehow radiated an elegance, as if he were savoring fine wine. Of 82, he turned around his back to the camera lens, leaving hundreds of thousands of viewers with a desolate silhouette in SpongeBob pajamas. His tone was as calm as if talking about today's weather. I just scribbled it. It was so bad I planned to use it as kindling. If you like it, just take it and sing. Don't disturb my sleep. Having said that, he dragged his flip-flops shuffling back to the bedroom and slammed the door shut. The livestream room fell into dead silence for 5 seconds. After that, the server completely crashed. The first thing he did when he got back to his room was throw himself onto the bed and pull the blanket over his head. As long as I sleep fast enough, trouble won't be able to catch up to me. This was his motto for life. But this time, trouble had clearly attached a turbo-boosted engine. In the living room outside, Ye Wanwan stared blankly at the blacked-out phone screen, her entire body caught in a state of both excitement and bewilderment. The very last second before the live stream crashed, the concurrent viewer count hit the 1 million mark. That was a number she never even dared to dream of. Half an hour later, the trending searches were completely flooded by related topics. Mysterious Pajama Brother, God tier song Wishing Ye Wanwan. Livestream features miraculous original song. The man behind SpongeBob. At the same time, a screen-recorded video began to go viral across the internet. In the video, Ye Wanwan was soulfully singing Wishing, followed by her brother in SpongeBob pajamas, appearing lazily and casually dropping the line, "It was so bad. I was gonna use it as kindling." Meanwhile, at an office building 5 kilometers away from the apartment, in the CEO's office of Star Radiance Entertainment, An Yao Yi was frowning, intently looking at the financial report in her hand. As the youngest female CEO of Star Radiance, she had been in charge for 3 years, relying on her strong, decisive methods to barely stabilize the situation. But in this era where traffic is king, without any decent works, the company was already teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. CEO on. Look at this. Secretary Xiao Zhao rushed in frantically, forgetting even to knock, and Yao Yi coldly raised her head, her icy eyes sweeping over Xiao Zhao, carrying an unquestionable authority. I believe I said to knock before entering. Xiao Zhao shrank back, but still summoned the courage to hand over the tablet. CEO on, please don't be angry yet. Hurry and watch this live stream clip of Ye Wanwan. It's been sitting at the top of the hot searches for 20 minutes. And Yao Yi's brows furrowed even tighter. Ye Wanwan, that minor idol who could never get famous, and was almost placed on the termination list by the operations department. She took the tablet and opened the video. At first, her face was full of impatience, but when Ye Wanwan sang the line, "You are the distant road," the moment it played, her fingers tapping the desk froze. As the song continued, she slowly sat up straight from her leaning position. The coldness in her eyes gradually vanished, replaced by an intense, unhideable shock. As a professional in the industry, she understood the value of this song better than anyone. Who wrote this song? Have the rights been purchased yet? An Yao Yi's voice carried a hint of subtle urgency. Xiao Zhao hurriedly explained. That's the thing. This is the song Ye Wanwan found. During her live stream in her brother's notebook, that man in the pajamas is her older brother. Furthermore, he said this is just trash he scribbled and intended to use as kindling. An Yao Yi took a deep breath, nearly fainting on the spot, using a masterpiece like wishing as kindling. Is he insane? The next second, her sharp business instincts made her snap to attention. The opportunity is here. The lifeline for Star Radiance Entertainment has arrived. And Yao Yi sprang up, grabbing her coat. Her tone decisive, get the car ready, we're going to Ye Wanwan's house. Right now, immediately move it. A few minutes later, he was awakened by a frantic knocking at the door. No, that wasn't knocking. It was clearly someone pounding on the door. He painfully crawled out of bed, with intent to kill written all over his face, glancing at the alarm clock. His nap had lasted a mere 3 hours. His good mood was completely ruined. The moment he stepped out of the bedroom, he saw Ye Wanwan standing flustered at the entrance with the main door already open. At the door was a woman with an incredibly strong aura, wearing a skillfully tailored black office suit that perfectly accentuated her tall figure. Are you Ye Fan? And Yao Yi sized him up from head to toe, her gaze sweeping over his messy hair and his sleepy face. He was still wearing those eyesore SpongeBob pajamas, a world apart from the image of the god-tier composer she had imagined. He got goosebumps from her staring at him so much, subconsciously pulling his collar tight, his tone both indifferent and wary. I'm not signing up for cards, not buying insurance, and not buying a house. An Yao. Yeah, I didn't even care about his nonsense. She stepped straight into the living room in her high heels, looking around the cramped space once, until her gaze locked onto the black notebook on the coffee table. She walked quickly over, picked it up, and flipped through a few pages. Her hands couldn't help but tremble. Besides wishing, there were also The Wind Blows and The Lonely Warrior, along with several other songs. Even if they were just outlines of lyrics and simple melodies, those lyrics alone were enough to make her heart beat frantically. This wasn't just a notebook. It was clearly a gold mine. A gold mine that could propel Star Radiance Entertainment to the peak of the entertainment industry. And Yao Yi closed the book and turned around, her eyes burning as she stared at him. Name your price. Star Radiance will take all of these. A buyout or profit sharing, both are fine. Or I'll sign you as a core music producer for Star Radiance. He was stunned for a moment, finally recognizing that the woman in front of him was An Yao Yi, Ye Wanwan's boss, the female devil, known as the iceberg of the entertainment world. He scratched his head sluggishly, walking to the fridge, taking out a can of cola, his tone extremely casual. Hey, CEO Ann, is there some kind of misunderstanding? I just wrote these for fun. They have zero literary value. And Yao Yi let out a cold laugh, holding up the notebook in her hand. Scribbles, if you call this scribbling, then the entire Mandopop scene should just give up and learn to dance. Stop talking nonsense. $1.5 million per song plus 5% profit sharing. This is already the highest offer in the industry. Ye Wanwan standing nearby gasped, 1.5 million? She had been working her tail off on the verge of death and couldn't even make that much in an entire year. Yet he just popped the tab of his cola can with utter indifference, taking a sip. His tone remained just as nonchalant. CEO Ann, the money isn't the important part. Mainly it's just too tiring. Tiring, and Yao Yi's brows furrowed deeply. Clearly she didn't expect him to say that. Exactly. He began counting on his fingers, his tone incredibly passionate. If I sign a contract, I have to write music. Once it's written, I have to oversee the recording. After recording, I have to do promo. If the song becomes a hit, I'll have to do interviews. I still have to play games and sleep every day. Where would I find the time to worry about all that? And Yao Yi was completely stunned. She thought he'd use his talent to hike the price, or even demand all sorts of harsh conditions. She never expected his reason for refusal would be fear of being tired. He turned down millions just to sleep. She took a deep breath, trying to suppress her anger. She pulled out her phone, opened the trending search page, and thrust it in front of him. Do you even know your current situation? Ye Wanwan's live stream has exploded everywhere. The entire social media world is hunting for you. You think by not signing a contract, you can just keep lying flat and ignore the world? He glanced at the screen. The words on the trending topics were painfully bright, searching the entire internet for the SpongeBob brother. As long as he's willing to debut, I'll personally donate money. So he can sleep on the fanciest bed. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. He inwardly complained, do these netizens have too much free time or what? But he knew the cat was out of the bag and sighed helplessly. CEO, and how about this? You guys take the music and sing it as for the royalty fees. Just give me whatever you want. Just don't use my name. Don't make me show my face and don't make me work. We cooperate happily and everyone wins, okay? And Yao Yi flatly and firmly refused, no way. Resources this good must be paired with a full-scale promotional campaign, especially your character archetype. The contrast is too strong. It will definitely be a massive hit. Then I'd rather just burn this notebook. He spoke while reaching out to snatch the notebook back. Yao Yi took a step back, clutching the notebook tightly to her chest. The distance between the two suddenly narrowed. She could even smell a faint, cool scent coming from him. The atmosphere in the living room remained in a deadlock. Right then, Yao Yi's phone rang. It was a call from the company's PR department. As soon as she picked up, her expression immediately changed. What did you say? The voice on the other end wasn't loud, but he could still faintly hear a few words. Their rival Skyfish Media had released a statement claiming the song Wishing, sung by Ye Wan Wan, was plagiarized from one of their unreleased tracks. They even claimed Ye Wan Wan stole the demo. And even the older brother him was being called a hired actor, brought in to whitewash the scandal, and Yao Yi hung up the phone, her face pale as she looked at him. Her tone carried a sense of determination. Did you hear that? Now isn't the time for you to choose whether to lie flat or not. If you don't step up, your sister will be branded as a plagiarizer. Not only will she have to pay a massive contract breach penalty, but she'll never be able to show her face in the industry ever again. Ye Wan Wan, who had been silent this whole time, now had a deathly pale face, with tears welling up in her eyes. Brother, I really didn't do that. He looked at the pitiful state of his younger sister. His lazy, half-closed eyes narrowed slightly. Even though he hated trouble, he hated those who dared touch his people even more. In his past life, he only knew work, never even feeling what family affection was. In this life, he finally had a silly sister to lean on. Yet someone dared to throw dirt on her. Skyfish Media, he muttered the name. His voice wasn't loud, but it radiated a chill that made people's spines tingle. A moment later, he turned around with a calm face. CEO on, did you bring the contract? And Yao Yi was stunned. But after reacting, she hurriedly nodded. Yes, I have it. Give it here. He held out his hand, his tone leaving no room for doubt. But I have 3 conditions. First, I don't go to the office or clock in. Don't look for me before I wake up from my nap. Second, aside from recording, any commercial activities, I will not participate in unless I'm in a good mood. Third, his gaze firmly pointed at Ye Wan Wan beside him. I'll handle all of her future songs. If anyone dares bully her again, I'll crush them with my music. And Yao Yi looked at the overbearing aura. That changed in the blink of an eye. Her heart unintentionally skipped a beat. She quickly took the contract and pen from her bag, slamming them down on the coffee table. Deal. He grabbed the pen scribbled across the contract and signed his name. Then he tossed the pen aside. He turned and collapsed back onto the sofa, pulling a pillow over his face. His tone returned to its usual lazy state. All right, the contract is signed. I'll handle the rest. Now can you take the sound of your high heels and leave my house? I still need to catch up on my sleep. And Yao Yi looked at him in this state and was momentarily speechless. This man was truly hard to read, but looking at the signed contract in her hand, a smile still curled at the corner of her mouth. It's been a while. Skyfish Media. Haha, 20 minutes after signing the contract, he was sandwiched between Yao Yi and Ye Wan Wan and dragged onto the luxury van. He sprawled out on the soft leather seat like a defeated salted fish. I said it already, the contract is very clear. I don't see guess, it's 5 p.m. right now. The legally mandated pre-dinner zoning out hour. You're both in breach of contract. And Yao Yi sat in the passenger seat, fingers tapping rapidly on her tablet, answering without even turning her head. The contract also states that Party B must coordinate with Party A to conduct the necessary recording of the works. Furthermore, I don't recall any labor law clause regarding a pre-dinner zoning out hour. That's just because you haven't seen enough of the world. He muttered under his breath, pulling his hoodie over his head, trying to isolate this trouble by blocking his vision. The car sped down the road, finally stopping in front of a skyscraper. In the heart of the CBD, it was the headquarters of Star Radiance Entertainment. Even a starving camel is bigger than a horse. The headquarters building was decorated magnificently. It's just that when Yao Yi led him still in his pajamas into the main lobby, the receptionist's expression couldn't help but shift. CEO and this gentleman is... She peeked at his sleepy appearance, thinking to herself, is the company really going bankrupt? Even a hobo can just wander in like this. Ye Wan Wan was about to introduce him as her brother, but he cut her off, taking a long, wide yawn in the process. The AC repairman, your lobby is way too cold. It's a waste of electricity. I recommend raising it by 2 degrees to save the environment. And Yao Yi's high heels came to a halt. She took a deep breath to suppress her anger, turned her head and glared at him. Shut it. Then she led the group straight to recording studio number 1 on the top floor. This was Star Radiance Entertainment's final trump card, equipped with world-class gear and mixing consoles. At this time, there was an old man with graying hair in the studio, wearing thick glasses, frowning as he stared at the sound waves on the screen. That was a veteran music producer, and the only remaining founding member of Star Radiance. He had an eccentric personality, and his musical standards were almost punishingly strict. If not for old time's sake, he would have been headhunted by top companies long ago. Master Wang, his name was Wang Jiangguo, a famous veteran music producer in the industry, and the only remaining founding member of Star Radiance. He had an eccentric personality, and his musical standards were almost punishingly strict. If not for old time's sake, he would have been headhunted by top companies long ago. Master Wang and Yao Yi pushed the door open, her tone immediately becoming respectful. Yao Yi. Wang Jiangguo took off his glasses and rubbed his temples, his voice full of exhaustion. I watched Wan's live stream. That song, Wishing, is indeed a masterpiece, but recording it to capture the same soul as the live stream won't be easy. The current arrangement is too thick. It actually ruins the inherent vibe of the lyrics and melody. Having said that, his gaze fell upon him, and his eyebrows instantly knit together. Which delivery guy took a wrong turn into here? He, on the other hand, found it funny, just as he was about to nod in agreement and take the chance to slip away. His wrist was gripped tight by an Yao Yi. Master Wang, this is the author of Wishing, and also the supervisor for this recording session. Wang Jiangguo sized him up from head to toe, his gaze lingering on his flip-flops. So angry, his beard almost twitched. Utter nonsense. Writing music and producing are two different things. What does this slacker know about anything? Yao Yi, are you playing games with the company's future? And Yao Yi wasn't certain in her heart either. She also knew writing and recording were two different things, but she still gritted her teeth and persisted. Master Wang, just let him try. Fine. I want to see what kind of tricks you can pull off. Wang Jiangguo snorted, snorting coldly as he stood up to give up his seat. He sighed helplessly, looking at that familiar mixing console. Memories of his past life working overtime until he coughed up blood instantly came rushing back. He really didn't want to touch these things anymore. But turning his head and seeing Ye Wanwan beside him looking so nervous that her hands were sweating, his heart softened. He slowly walked up to the mixing console, but didn't even sit down. One hand stayed in his pocket, while the other casually flicked through the dents, faders, and knobs. Wanwan, get in the booth. He spoke into the mic, his voice still carrying that inescapable laziness. Then his fingers tapped rapidly on the keyboard a few times. He didn't make many changes, only adjusting the timbre, making the piano sound warmer and fuller, while cutting out the redundant string arrangements from the original mix. The intro played for 2 beats and the music started. Yawanwan took a deep breath and began to sing You Are the Distant Road. Stop. He pressed the pause button after just the first line. Wang Jiangguo let out a cold laugh from the side. Wasn't that perfectly fine? The pitch was perfect and the emotion was there. He ignored him and pressed the talkback button. Ye Wanwan, are you just reciting a lesson? Or are you in a rush to be reincarnated? Ye Wanwan was stunned, her voice carrying a hint of grievance. Brother? Who's your brother? Right now, I'm the supervisor. His voice still wasn't loud, but it radiated an unquestionable authority. The distant road. You have to see the road. Don't just use your throat to sing. Use your brain to visualize. Imagine you're standing in the Gobi Desert, the sand and wind blinding your eyes so you can't see ahead. But you know the person you're looking for is right there. Again, Wang Jiangguo was slightly taken aback. This kid's words were harsh, but his approach was incredibly sharp, hitting the heart of the problem. Wanwan steadied her mind and started the second take. You are the distant road, the mist in the mountain wilderness. He interrupted again. Stop. The word mist, your breath is too heavy. You need to feel lost, not like you're having an asthma attack. Hold back your breath a bit, use chest resonance. Next was the third time. Stop, stop, stop. The light is hope, not a ghost. Why are you singing so driftily? In just a short half hour, he stopped her over 20 times. Wang Jiangguo's attitude changed from initial disdain to shock, and by now his jaw was on the floor. As a pro, he could obviously hear it. Every time he called for a stop, he pinpointed Ye Wanwan's mistakes perfectly. Those tiny errors, even for a veteran like him, would require listening closely several times to notice, but it was as if he were one with the melody. Every correction was spot on. What was even more shocking was his operation. One hand controlled the mixer, but his hand speed was insanely fast. While correcting Ye Wanwan's mistakes, he was also adjusting the dynamic balance of the track. In real time, Wang Jiangguo took off his glasses, his hands trembling slightly. This is dynamic mixing. You can't master this technique without 20 years of practice. Just how old is he? And Yao Yi stood to the side, watching his focused profile, her heart surging with intense waves. This man, just how much hidden talent does he still have? An hour later, he finally let out a yawn, pressed the talkback button and said, Ye Wanwan, if you don't nail this, there's no braised pork for dinner tonight. Ye Wanwan inside the booth gritted her teeth, closed her eyes. This time she stopped worrying about technique or pitch. Only his guidance echoed in her head. After the song ended, Wang Jiangguo slapped his thigh hard. Great, it's amazing. This is the most soulful recording I've heard all year. No, in the last 10 years actually. He excitedly turned around to shake his hand. Young man, your technique is god tier, especially the vowel processing in the chorus. It's truly the finishing touch. Which master did you study under? But he grabbed thin air. Where he was standing, there was only an empty thermos left. An Yao Yi looked around and finally spotted a strange object on the old sofa in the corner of the studio. He was already curled up there, hoodie covering his face, emitting the sound of steady breathing. Wang Jianguo stood frozen in place. His expression was a total sight to behold. He just went to sleep like that. An Yao Yi looked at him sprawled out like a salted fish on the sofa. The corner of her mouth couldn't help but twitch upward, but her eyes held a trace of complexity. Master Wang finished the master track quickly. It will be released across the internet at midnight. She turned to look at the night falling outside the wide window, coldly adding, also notify the legal department. Prepare, the lawyers. Skyfish is about to throw some serious shade. And Yao Yi's intuition was terrifyingly accurate. At 10 p.m. that night, 2 hours before the official version of Wishing went live on Weibo and all major platforms, there suddenly appeared a series of negative keywords targeting Ye Wanwan. Ye Wanwan lip syncs, Star Radiance is a scam. The real author of Wishing is someone else. Ye Wanwan get out of showbiz. A long post titled Unveiling the Truth. Behind the live stream, where did Ye Wanwan's god tier song actually come from, was simultaneously shared by hundreds of marketing accounts. The article claimed with absolute certainty that Wishing was a draft from 2 years ago by Wang Dung, the gold tier producer at Skyfish Media, which hadn't been released for various reasons, but was stolen by Ye Wanwan using illicit methods. The post even included a blurry photo of a musical score, with a timestamp clearly showing it was from 2 years ago. Even more malicious was that the article insinuated the older brother was actually a D-list actor, hired by Star Radiance. The so-called finding the notebook on the spot was entirely a meticulously staged script aimed at building a talented girl persona for the washed-up Ye Wanwan in the meeting room of Star Radiance Entertainment. Ye Wanwan looked at her phone screen, shaking with rage, tears streaming down. This is too shameless. My brother clearly wrote it. I've never even heard of that Wang Dung guy. How can they just flip the truth like that? And Yao Yi sat in the head seat, her expression terrifyingly dark. She coldly said, this is how capital works. Skyfish wants to crush us in the cradle. Once they label this song as plagiarism, then no matter what you sing later, you'll be viewed as a thief. How's the PR department doing? The PR director broke into a cold sweat. We can't hold them off. The opposition bought the highest tier water army package and has several influencers with 10 million fans leading the narrative. Our clarification post was buried. The moment it went up, currently netizens are demanding the removal of Wishing and an apology from Ye Wanwan. The entire meeting room was shrouded in a gloomy atmosphere. Every eye was fixed on An Yao Yi, waiting for her to make a decision. But facing this overwhelming, earth-shattering siege of public opinion, unless there was ironclad evidence, all explanations would be meaningless. Right then, the meeting room door was pushed open. Yafan was still wearing those SpongeBob pajamas, carrying a bag of late-night BBQ he just ordered. Instead of eating, you're all gathered here for a funeral or what? He completely ignored the heavy atmosphere in the room. Walking straight to Ye Wanwan's side, he pulled out a tissue and handed it over. Wipe it off. Your makeup is running. It looks ugly, and it's not like you're that pretty to begin with. Seeing him, Ye Wanwan's grievances finally exploded. She wailed and sobbed, brother, they're saying you're an actor, and that your song was stolen. His motion of chewing a lamb skewer froze. Stolen. He chuckled. It was an incredibly contemptuous laugh, as if he were watching a bunch of ants put on a self-made play. That Wang Dung guy says he wrote this. An Yao Yi thrust the tablet in front of him. The gold producer of Skyfish. He claims the style of this song is identical to a draft he rejected 2 years ago, though he hasn't provided a full recording. But this kind of verbal slander is the hardest to clear up. He glanced at the post, his eyes lingering for a second on that blurry musical score before letting out a contemptuous laugh. A four-time signature written as 3-4. He hasn't even mastered basic music theory, yet he dares to pull a scam like this. He stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the bustling city nightscape outside. The system in his head frantically flashed notifications. Warning, host's reputation is being damaged. Recommendation, activate face slap mode immediately. Mission reward, deep sleep pillow. He stretched his body, his joints making a series of cracking sounds. I didn't originally want to lift a finger. After all slapping people requires, raising my hand, and that's exhausting. He turned around, his gaze suddenly becoming razor sharp. The initial laziness vanished without a trace, replaced by an overwhelming sense of pressure, as if he held everything in the palm of his hand. If they want to hear music, I'll give them an earful. He walked up to An Yao Yi, leaning both hands on the table as he looked down at her. What style is that Wang Dung guy best at? An Yao Yi was stunned, then blurted out. He's famous for his high range and complex vocal runs. He's dubbed the whistle note machine. All his previous hits were technical show-off pieces like that. The corner of his mouth curled into a meaningful smirk. Flexing technique, high notes fine. Then I'll show him. what high really sounds like? The unreachable kind. He turned and walked toward the piano. In the corner of the meeting room, sitting down, his fingers lightly brushed the keys. If we're gonna slap his face, we've gotta make it loud. Listen closely. The piano note suddenly rang out, the intro like a cool breeze brushing against the skin, instantly capturing everyone's attention. He hummed softly as he played. Everyone in the meeting room held their breath. This melody, it's beautiful. So beautiful, it feels heartbreaking. Yet so beautiful, it fills one with courage. The melody transitioned into the chorus. His fingers danced and flew across the keys, the pressure suddenly increasing sharply. The melody soared high like a longsword unsheathed, rushing straight up to the ninth heaven. Once the piece ended, he pulled his hands back, turning to look at everyone who was already dazed like statues. This song is called The Wind Blows. Doesn't that Wang Deng guy like to flex his technique? Tell him to try singing this. Fanatical light flickered in An Yao Yi's eyes. If wishing was an emotional nuclear bomb, then The Wind Blows was a dimensional shredding strike, in terms of both technique and emotion. Once this song is released, who would dare doubt Ye Wanwan's singing ability? Who would dare say the work is plagiarized? Are we recording this tonight? And Yao Yi's voice was trembling. He stood up, eating the last piece of the grilled skewer. Record it right now. Also tell that department to post the clarification and start a direct live stream. A live stream? Everyone was startled by his answer. A crafty glint flashed in his eyes. That's right, live stream right from the studio. They say Wan lip syncs and call me an actor, so we will do it right in front of the netizens and record this song. Not just recording The Wind Blows, but also releasing the project stems of Wishing. I want that Wang Deng guy to bring his own face here, just to receive this slap. Yao Yi took a deep breath, then suddenly stood up. Fine, let's do exactly that. Xiaozhou, contact the platforms to push the trend site-wide. The title is Tonight Let the Wind Blow Without Ceasing. At 1 a.m., most people had fallen asleep. But this was the hour of peak activity for the masses, of gossip seekers. The official live stream of Star Radiance Entertainment suddenly opened with a simple and blunt title, recording session for Ye Wanwan's new song. If you're not convinced, come at us. At that time, at Skyfish Media producer, Wang Deng was lying on the sofa at a massage parlor, watching the one-sided insults across the internet. He proudly sent a message to his boss, rest assured, CEO Lee, that wannabe is finished. He's too green to go up against me. He didn't know that an epic public execution aimed right at him, like a storm about to sweep the entire net, was quietly approaching. Recording studio number 1 at Star Radiance 1 a.m. The lights were blindingly bright like broad daylight. The air was thick with a sense of tension that was almost tangible, like a guitar string stretched to the absolute limit, where the slightest slip would cause it to snap and draw blood. The number of concurrent viewers in the live stream had already surpassed 5 million for a late-night time slot. This was an unbelievable miracle. The comments on the screen were so dense, they flowed as fast as a waterfall. Some were cursing, some were just there for the drama, but most of them were waiting for the judgment of him and Ye Wanwan. 1 minute left, and Yao Yi stood behind the console, with her arms crossed over her chest, but her fingers were unconsciously tapping against her arm. Her makeup was still flawless, but the fatigue in her eyes betrayed her anxiety. At this moment, her gaze kept drifting toward him. He sat in the main chair, still in that same spineless posture, even propping his feet up on an empty equipment rack nearby, fiddling with a fidget cube he'd picked up from somewhere. What are you waiting for? Wan, are you warmed up yet? Inside the booth, yeah. Wan took a deep breath and nodded slightly. Brother, I'm ready. Her voice had a barely noticeable tremble, but it radiated determination. Then let's get started. Finish early, clock out early. I'm sleepy. He casually pressed the button to start the stream with a motion as nonchalant as turning off a light. The live stream feed immediately connected. There was no long-winded explanation as expected. There was no crying or playing the victim. The frame was incredibly simple. On the left was Ye Wanwan standing in front of the mic. On the right was a clean project file interface without any unnecessary clutter. That Wang Deng guy says he wrote this song 2 years ago. His voice rang out lazy as ever without showing his face. Only his slender hands were visible in the frame, operating the mouse on the screen. Fine, let me show you all what a real timeline gap looks like. The mouse clicked softly. As play was pressed, the piano notes slowly echoed. It wasn't the controversial song Wishing, but the gentler intro, yet tinged with the sadness of The Wind Blows. As Ye Wanwan began to sing, his hands flew across the project interface. The EQ wave charts under his hands seemed to come alive, dancing and pulsing along with the melody. The compressor thresholds were dialed in perfectly at every peak. Dynamic movements without a single error. The live stream audience immediately exploded. Holy crap, is this hand speed even human? Can someone in the industry explain what he's doing? He's mixing and arranging live. Only top-tier recording engineers would dare to do this. One slip of the hand and the whole song is ruined. This isn't some hired actor. This is clearly a great god. As the song ended, Ye Wanwan took off her headphones, panting. Her cheeks flushed, but her eyes were incredibly bright. The girl had done it, completely conquering this high-difficulty song. But he gave his sister no time to celebrate, his tone remaining calm. Next, let's settle the old debt. The mouse clicked open a folder. File details immediately appeared on the screen. This is the original project file for Wishing. The file properties list was displayed clearly. Created October 28th, 2023. Total edits 108. Recording times for every single vocal track. Loading history for every plugin. Even the initial demo consisting of only humming was opened one by one by him. Was that slap loud enough? No need for further explanation. In the face of absolute professional expertise and the ironclad evidence presented, the so-called steel evidence of Skyfish Media instantly became a total joke. The comment section completely flipped. Nothing but cheers for him and heavy criticism for Wang Deng instead. The live stream ended and he tossed the mouse aside. His whole body looked spineless, slumped in the chair, his tone carrying extreme exhaustion. Alright, that's a wrap. I'm going home to sleep. Nobody better stop me. 3 days later, Star Radiance Entertainment turned the tables. Inside the company, everyone was still busy as hell, with Wishing and The Wind Blows taking the top 2 spots on the charts. Ye Wanwan's fame multiplied tenfold overnight. Endless schedules were flying in like crazy. As for the MVP behind it all, he was currently hiding in the company, inside the most remote spare break room. On the door hung a sign he wrote himself. Unauthorized personnel keep out. Beware of dog. Wait, no. God-tier producer inside seeking inspiration. The light in the room was dim, with only the computer screen emitting a faint blue glow. He wore headphones, his right hand clicking the mouse frantically, his left hand clattering across the keyboard. His gaze was terrifyingly focused. Faster, a bit faster. If this combo breaks, it's over. The door was pushed open, and Yao Yi walked in holding a stack of documents. She was just about to speak, but was stunned by the scene before her. She thought he was seizing every second to compose a new hit, since the company needed to strike while the iron was hot. But leaning in for a closer look, there was no mixing software on the screen at all. It was clearly the screen-filling flashy light effects of a rhythm game, and Yao Yi's blood pressure spiked instantly. She was out there blocking over a dozen interviews for him, turning down 5 industry giants wanting to buy songs, and it turns out he was hiding here gaming. Yi Fan, she gritted her teeth and screamed his name, her voice exploding with rage. He was startled by her scream. His hand shook, missing a note. The screen immediately flashed a giant miss, followed by a glaring game over. He let out a tragic wail, ripping off his headphones, glaring at Yao Yi with a face of pure despair. Sis, do you know how long it took me to get to this stage? This is a hidden level. I was only 3 combos away from clearing it. Hidden level. And Yao Yi was so angry. She laughed, slamming the documents onto the table. The whole company is working OT while you're here grinding levels? Do you have any idea how? Many people are waiting for your new track. You promised me you'd cooperate with the work. He acted innocent, casually grabbing a cold Coke next to him for a sip. His tone was full of conviction. I am working. This is my creative process. You call gaming composing. And Yao Yi felt her IQ was being insulted. Her voice filled with utter disbelief. He let out a heavy sigh, then pointed at the computer screen, explaining patiently, look at the attack rhythm of this game. The BPM is 145. It's a classic, high-tempo style. But the way it divides the bridges is very interesting. It uses syncopation. Just now, I was trying to capture that specific syncopated rhythm, saying that he exited the game interface and opened the DAW software running in the background. And Yao Yi was stunned for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady herself. Fine, I'll let you slide this time. But for tonight's celebration party, you absolutely must attend. Without even thinking, he immediately refused. I'm not going. Crowds are too noisy. And I can't even wear my pajamas. And Yao Yi's gaze became serious. This isn't just a celebration party. It's an industry networking event. I heard Skyfish is sending someone too. Even though we won a round online, our industry foundation is still too shallow. You need to show your face to deter those who are starting to get ideas. She looked at him, her tone softening, even carrying a hint of a plea. Consider it a favor to me. Just show your face tonight, and I'll let you take 3 days off next week. Sleep as much as you want. Deal. Hearing about 3 days off, his eyes lit up instantly, even more than seeing a pentakill in a game. The Grand Hotel Ballroom, with crystal chandeliers radiating a brilliant glow, the melodious sound of a violin drifted through the air as champagne towers reflected the mesmerizing light. This place gathered half of the entertainment industry's big shots. Famous people and top stars were everywhere, all dressed in formal suits, looking extraordinary. In this crowd of stiff suits and gorgeous evening gowns, he forced by Yao Yi into a black suit, was currently focused on a fierce battle with an Australian lobster, eating with pure joy. Yao Yi seemed used to his freedom and could only let out a helpless sigh. Without saying much else, brother eat less. So many people are watching. Wan, wearing a pale pink evening gown, looking like a delicate little princess, nervously stood in front of him, trying to use her slender body to hide his aggressive eating style. Let them watch. Isn't a buffet made for eating? If I don't eat my money's worth, it's a huge loss. He didn't care at all, casually grabbing a piece of tiramisu and popping it in his mouth. Right at that moment, a stir broke out at the ballroom entrance. A group of people walked in, led by a young man in a silver sequined suit, with dyed gray hair and heavy makeup. His eyes radiated an arrogant, I own the world vibe. Beside him was a middle-aged man with a pot belly. That was the deputy director of Skyfish Media Lee Zhendong, accompanied by the rookie they were, pushing hard. Ye-1-1 whispered. Her body instinctively stiffened. Lee Zhendong clearly spotted on Yao Yi as well, a fake smile plastered on his face. He walked over and intentionally raised his voice. Well, isn't this CEO and... Congrats, the salted fish has finally flipped. But that's just luck stumbling onto one or two good songs. I just wonder how long this luck can last. And Yao Yi held her champagne glass and coldly shot back. When you have the skill, luck naturally follows. Unlike some companies that only know how to scavenge, others rejected drafts just to feel relevant. Lee Zhendong's face stiffened, immediately followed by a sneer. CEO An's tongue is as sharp as ever. However, writing music isn't just about quality, it's about whether you can keep up with the times. Young people today want explosive stages. Relying on a few depressing moaning love songs is only fit for middle-aged housewives. Dan standing beside him laughed with disdain, his eyes sweeping over him as he wiped his mouth. So this is the guy everyone calls the male god. Doesn't even greet his seniors. Or maybe he only knows how to act mysterious behind a screen and shrinks away in fear at events like this. He was about to put the last piece of cake in his mouth, but stopped when he heard that. He slowly swallowed the bite, took a sip of champagne to wash it down, then turned around and nonchalantly glanced at Jidan. His tone was calm but filled with genuine confusion. Honestly, who are you? A few quiet chuckles broke out around them. Jidan's face instantly turned as red as pig's liver. He was a rising top-tier idol, sought after by everyone wherever he went. Yet someone dared to ask who he was. I'm Jidan, a multi-talented artist fresh from training in Korea. He spoke through gritted teeth, staring at him with provocative eyes. Since you're a musician, do you dare to have a showdown right here? Stop just writing those slow, sleepy lullabies. For this occasion, people want energy. Can you even handle a real performance? He felt like he had just heard the biggest joke on earth. Turning his head to look at An Yao Yi, his eyes clearly spelled out the words. Is this the person you wanted me to suppress? Isn't this guy just an idiot? An Yao Yi shrugged helplessly. But a glint of anticipation flashed in her eyes. She knew that when he showed this expression, it meant someone was about to get wrecked. He waved his hand, turning back to finish off the rest of the lobster. Lee Zhendong stood by fanning the flames, his voice rising a few notches, deliberately drawing the attention of more people. I think it's more like you just don't have the guts. Look everyone, this is the artist from Star Radiance Entertainment. Only knows how to write weak, baseless moaning. When it's time for real skill, he chickens out. The banquet hall broke into whispers, many people pointing and gesturing toward him. In this industry, talent is important, but aura and adaptability are also crucial. If he admits defeat today, the reputation Star Radiance just built will take a serious hit. He sighed, looking at the unfinished lobster on his plate, a sense of annoyance rising in his heart. Why is it that every time I want to eat and sleep in peace, there are always flies buzzing in my ear? He slammed the plate down on the table, his tone full of impatience. I didn't really want to bully the handicapped, but since you keep sticking your face out, I guess I'll reluctantly give it a slap. He didn't walk toward the center of the stage, but went straight to the band area nearby. It was a live band providing background music for the party. He walked up and said a few words to the drummer. The drummer was stunned for a moment, then nodded and gave up his seat. He signaled a few movements to the keyboardist and the guitarist. He sat behind the drum kit, testing it out. The drumsticks struck down, producing a crisp sound. He looked up at Jidan, his gaze as sharp as a knife, his tone carrying an unquestionable dominance. He said, "You said young people today like it explosive. Like it internationalized? Then today I'll open your eyes to what real internationalization looks like, and what kind of C-pop is truly the peak." He slammed the bass drum hard. A powerful deep boom exploded, sounding like a heartbeat. Instantly, the noisy hall fell silent. Every eye was fixed on him. Immediately after, a flurry of drums like a torrential storm burst forth, not the gentleness of lounge music, nor the clatter of rock, but a strange kind of rhythm that made one's blood boil with excitement. He played the drum, controlling the room's tempo, while leaning into the vocalist's mic, spitting bars at a speed nearly like spoken dialogue. Everyone present was stunned. What style is this? It's not quite hip-hop nor electronic. His tongue was as agile as a machine gun. Each word struck the audience's eardrums clearly. Within that lazy tone emanated a natural-born dominance. A wave of cultural confidence surged, along with a sharp satire of foreign worship, sounding like resounding slaps, whipping right across the faces of Lee Zhendong and Jidan. Jidan's face turned pale. The so-called international style that he was so proud of, standing before this song, became pale and ridiculous. He understood the lyrics. Every line was cursing him for losing his roots and being a mere copycat. The atmosphere at the scene completely exploded. The originally elegant banquet hall instantly transformed into a vibrant disco floor. Stars and moguls who usually put on airs were now unconsciously tapping feet and swaying to the beat. This rhythm is too addictive. It's carved into my DNA. When the final drum beat echoed, the entire room went silent for a second, then erupted into a storm of applause and cheers, as if they wanted to blow the roof off. This was shock and passion from the bottom of their hearts. Absolutely not just social politeness. Yifan tossed the drumsticks down and stood up, with beads of sweat on his forehead, ignoring the crazed crowd. And not even glancing at Li Jiandong or Jidan. With their faces turning gray, he walked straight back to the buffet area, grabbed the half-eaten lobster, waved it in front of a dazed An Yao Yi. Now can I finally eat in peace? He took a bite of lobster and added one more thing. Oh right, this song is called Compendium of Materia Medica. It's a specialized cure for those who aren't convinced, especially the bone-softening disease of worshipping foreign things. An Yao Yi looked at his greasy, oily face, and a spark never seen before shined in her eyes. She suddenly felt this impulsive, free-spirited man, whose head was filled only with eating and sleeping, was 10,000 times more handsome than any top-tier idol. An Yao Yi let out a soft laugh, handed him a tissue, and said in a very gentle tone, "Eat up. If it's not enough, there's more." Not far away, Li Jiandong and Jidan slunk into the crowd, wishing they could find a hole to crawl into. They knew all too well that tomorrow would belong to Star Radiance again, and this time they didn't even have the right to talk back. Compendium of Materia Medica was sung to the point of utter chaos, sung in a way that defied explanation. He originally just wanted to use this party to teach Jidan, an ignorant brat, a lesson, while promoting some cultural confidence, but he underestimated how much this parallel world thirsted for enchanting melodies. In just one night, short video platforms were flooded with the shuttlecock dance. From gym bros lifting weights to college girls in pajamas at their dorms, even kindergartners doing their morning exercises. The background music had all changed to the lyrics. If Hua Tuo is so talented, foreign worshipping diseases will be cured. However, as the mastermind behind it all, he was currently facing the greatest crisis of his life. 6 a.m. At the square below an old apartment complex in Shanghai, the booming bass from a maxed out speaker was like an earth-shattering bomb, piercing through 3 floors, accurately nuking his eardrums, carrying 2 massive dark circles under his eyes. He reached one hand out from under the blanket, desperately grabbed his phone to check the time. 6:03 a.m. For someone whose life depends on sleep, this was nothing short of attempted murder. He painfully crawled up and pulled the curtains to look down. In the small square below the building, dozens of aunties in gaudy red and green uniforms were lined up in a perfect square formation, dancing to that brainwashing melody, the high-pitched melody and the frantic dance moves. And that song was the one he casually wrote 3 days ago to flatter his landlady, Auntie Wang, for free utilities. This week, the most dazzling folk style. At the time, Auntie Wang complained that modern music was too soft, not enough energy for square dancing, and they were being outshone by the Red Sunset dance team next door. To keep his ears in peace, plus the system's hidden mission to spread Chinese music, he spent 10 minutes rewriting the king of all hits on earth. He was even thoughtful enough to use a synthesizer for a high-energy remix. Who would have guessed that this thing would spread faster than a virus? "I've brought this on myself," he muttered, banging his head against the window frame. This was a total backfire. Before he could recover, his phone rang. It was An Yao Yi. He answered, his voice as raspy as an old man on his deathbed. "Hello, boss? If you're telling me to come to the office, you'd better call an ambulance for me too." On the other end, An Yao Yi's voice sounded very strange. "You don't need to come to the office, but you have to explain why." Star Radiance Entertainment's official inbox received over 300 letters this morning from the National Square Dancing Association, the University Arts Department, the Elderly Association, and even the Golden Age Sunset branch, all sending their thanks. He went silent. He knew she was gloating over his misery. An Yao Yi's voice was still suppressed with laughter. The copyrights for the most dazzling folk style. How are you handling them? The downloads across the net have already surpassed wishing, and the listener demographic is very unique, especially unique. You heard that with some suspicion. Yes, the data analysis shows that the penetration rate of this song among the over 45 demographic is as high as 90%. Yi fan, have you become a total mommy killer now? You hung up the phone abruptly, wishing you could just vanish into the earth. Clearly, I was going for the cool, mysterious movie and music. Star Image. How did I suddenly become a square dance leader? By the afternoon, An Yao Yi forced you to the TV station for a recording of the top-tier music show, New Rhythm of National Style. Originally, a rising rookie, like you wouldn't stand a chance here. But thanks to the momentum of Compendium of Materia Medica, plus the terrifying craze for the most dazzling folk style and its grassroots influence, the production team made an exception and sent an invite. But the atmosphere at the scene was not friendly at all. In the waiting room, Yawanwan was nervously memorizing lyrics. Seeing you walk in, she rushed over like she'd found a lifeline. "Brother, you're finally here. That judge is terrifying." "What's up?" You found the softest sofa and slumped down, casually picking up a slice of watermelon from the fruit plate. The manager nearby whispered an explanation. "It's Professor Liu Dezhang. He's a veteran professor from the Beijing Academy of Music, a giant in traditional folk music. During the rehearsal earlier, he made two little fresh meat. Idols cry from his scolding, calling their ancient-style music a mess, disrespectful to culture. Just as the words were spoken, the breakroom door was pushed open. An old man in a tank suit with silver hair, but a vigorous spirit walked in. Behind him was the show's director. The old man held a folding fan, his gaze as sharp as a knife, scanning the room the moment he entered. "Are you the Ye fan who wrote Compendium of Materia Medica?" You spat a seed into a tissue and nodded. "That's me. Professor Liu wants some melon, it's very sweet." Professor Liu gave a cold snort. "I don't accept this behavior. It's a good thing for young people to have talent. But don't think that just stringing together names of Chinese herbs and chanting a few catchy lines counts as national style. And that most dazzling folk style song of yours is truly tacky. Unbearably tacky, letting such a thing onto a grand stage is a tragedy for our music industry." These words were incredibly heavy. The break room instantly fell silent. Yeah, Wan was so scared her face turned pale. His movements paused as he slowly wiped his hands. He hated people who acted superior due to age and deified art like this. Art originates from life. The aunties are dancing and having fun. How did that become a tragedy? He stood up slowly, his tone quite calm as he asked Professor Liu, "What do you consider elegant? And what is tacky?" Professor Liu spoke proudly, "The spring snow. A highbrow melody few can follow. That is elegance. While this instant noodle music catering to the market, reeking of your money-grubbing ways is tackiness." He replied indifferently. "So according to your logic, the classic of poetry was also collected from the common folk back then. Wasn't that tacky too? You're just twisting words." Professor Liu was so angry. He was huffing and puffing. He gave a slight smile, a hint of mischief in his eyes. "Actually, I believe the most common is the most refined. Since Professor Liu thinks we only know how to write commercial music, then we'll change our style tonight." He then turned to look at Ye Wan. Wan scrapped the prepared song Web of Drama. "Scrap it, then what should I sing?" Ye Wan was in a panic. There were only 2 hours left until the live stream. "Sing this." He pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. It was another song he'd written out of boredom in the car. A heavy-duty weapon. In his past life, Jay Cho became a god. Not just because of Compendium of Materia Medica, but because he could write a masterpiece of national style that would leave even the most elite scholars speechless. Then he looked toward Professor Liu, his tone calm yet full of arrogance. "This song doesn't need choreography. It doesn't need special effects. One guitar and one guzheng are enough. If you can still find a flaw in this one, Ye fan will retire from this industry today." 2 hours later, the stage lights dimmed. The entire hall was deathly silent. There was no flashy choreography on stage, only a single spotlight shining on Ye Wan. She wore an elegant blue and white porcelain cheongsam, gentle as water in the darkness. He held an acoustic guitar. Beside him was a guzheng player. The guitar notes rang out clear and clean, like raindrops falling on blue cobblestones. Ye Wan brought the mic up, her voice soft as mist and smoke. In the judge's seat, Professor Liu had planned to nitpick, his pen ready to record every mistake. But as the first few lines were sung, his pen suddenly hovered in midair, unable to make a single mark. But the shock didn't stop there. Ye Wan's voice rang out again. Professor Liu closed his eyes, his body trembling slightly, as if seeing heirlooms of Ru-ware porcelain, slowly rotating in a light drizzle. The line, "The sky is blue waiting for the rain," struck right at the heart of a traditional culture researcher like him. Amazing, truly magnificent. The blue of the sky after rain breaks through the clouds. This young man actually understood that sentiment. As the song ended, the scene wasn't exploding with cheers like Compendium of Materia Medica. Instead, it fell into 10 seconds of silence. It was the speechlessness of being stunned by pure beauty, waiting until they recovered. Thunderous applause finally exploded. Many in the audience had reddened eyes. Those were tears of being moved by pure Eastern aesthetics. The host immediately handed the mic to Professor Liu. "Old Liu, how do you rate this song?" The old professor, who once called him unbearably vulgar, took off his glasses to wipe his eyes. He stayed silent for a long time before speaking hoarsely. "I take back my previous words. This song is a work of art." He turned his head, looking toward him as he hid in the shadows, unwilling to show his face. "If the young friend doesn't mind, I would like to ask for a copy of the handwritten lyrics to hang in my study." The entire hall gasped in surprise. The live stream comments exploded. "Holy crap. Professor Liu actually conceded. The sky waits for the rain. This time, it's truly peak. Literature teachers are going to be up all night prepping lesson plans. MC is so OP, he can handle both the rustic and the modern, both the vulgar and the refined. Is there anything he can't do in the backstage?" He tossed the guitar down and flopped onto the sofa. "I'm dead tired. Had to force myself to grind the guitar for the performance. My back is about to break. And Yao Yi, I want a raise. I want hot pot, I want a vacation." And Yao Yi looked at him, her eyes unable to hide her amusement. "Fine, I'll humor you." She suddenly felt that this man who complains about being tired all day and just wants to lie around, when forced to stand up, shines so brightly that people dare not look directly at him. Perhaps this is what a genius is like. Except this genius consumes a lot of Red Bull and Coke. A man fears fame like a pig fears getting fat. This saying applied perfectly to him. He intentionally hid in the shadows during the new rhythm of National Style's show, even pulling his baseball cap down very low. But in the internet age, just a tiny clue is enough. Netizens had already found the complex where the male god lived. Early the next morning, the internet blogger, all-knowing detective posted a video through Yewanwan's previous live stream based on the iconic architecture outside the window, the angle of the sunlight, the height of the floor, and combined with the distinct background of the square dance music, he had accurately geolocated the Happy Home complex where he was staying. Guys, I'm currently downstairs at the Happy Home complex. I heard the male god takes out the trash at 2 p.m. every day. Let's stake him out together. And just like that, he lost contact in the literal sense. His front door was surrounded and packed tight. Cameras were set up all over the hallway. There were even hardcore fans trying to climb the drain pipes. Food couldn't get in or out. He hadn't eaten for 4 hours. I can't take this anymore. He lay sprawled on the living room floor like a dried fish who had lost all his dreams. Clutching his last pack of raw instant noodles, he called on Yao Yi. If you don't come to the rescue, you won't just lose a producer, you'll lose a soul about to starve to death. On the other end of the line, En Yao Yi spoke calmly. Head to parking spot 404 in the basement. The freight elevator goes straight to your floor. I've already bribed the management. That's the only escape route. 10 minutes later, an inconspicuous black Wuling Hongguang sped out from the parking basement. He was huddled among cardboard boxes in the back seat, with a vegetable leaf still stuck to his head, looking completely fed up and hopeless. This is the VIP extraction plan you mentioned. Is this a garbage truck or what? And Yao Yi took off her mask, showing her stunning bare face. She glanced through the rearview mirror. If you don't want reporters searching all the way to your underwear, then sit tight. Right now, only this car can get you out, without anyone being the wiser. The car took several detours, finally pulling into a high-end villa area, the secluded Cloud Peak Manor. This was An Yao Yi's private property. Security was on par with a military base. Even a fly entering would need a facial scan. Get out. And Yao Yi parked the car in her private garage. He hopped out, stretching his stiff body. Looking around at the surroundings, massive floor-to-ceiling windows, a heated swimming pool, and a river view in the distance. Capitalism is truly cruel. He commented, that sofa over there looks like a great spot for a nap. From today on, stay here. And Yao, he tossed him a key. The first room on the left on the second floor is yours. There are 3 rules. First, no bringing random people home. Second, keep it clean. Third, she paused, her face heating up slightly. Don't wander around while I'm showering. He rolled his eyes. Don't worry. I have no interest in an iceberg. I'm afraid of catching a cold. I'm only interested in the Coke in the fridge, safe for the time being. But the problem still wasn't solved. He had to help Ye Wanwan record and deal with work. He couldn't hide in a villa forever. Besides, the bigger his fame grew without showing his face, the more speculation and digging it would cause. He needed an identity. That evening, An Yao Yi looked at him lying on the leather sofa playing games, lost in thought. Since you refuse to show your face no matter what, why don't we play along and create a masked singer persona? Masked. He continued his gaming controls. I'm not wearing anything with diamonds or feathers. That's too sissy, and I'm not wearing an Ultraman mask either. Too childish. Choose for yourself. And Yao Yi tossed a tablet over, showing various custom-designed mask templates. He glanced through and curled his lip. Either too cool or too mysterious. They all scream, I'm OP, worship me. This style didn't fit his salted fish aesthetic at all. Suddenly, his eyes fell on a delivery box next to the coffee table. It was a prank item he'd ordered online earlier, originally meant to scare Ye Wanwan. He opened the box. Inside was a green frog head, with a pathetic blank expression, and a salted fish head mask, with dead fish eyes half closed and a slightly agape mouth, radiating an intense vibe of being fed up with life. His eyes lit up as he grabbed the fish mask and pulled it over his head. A muffled voice echoed from inside the mask, matching those dead fish eyes with a weirdly eerie harmony. And Yao Yi looked at him wearing the salted fish head, her lip twitching for a long time. Are you serious? This is way too ugly. This is called hiding brilliance in plain sight. He spoke from inside the mask. Just look at these eyes. How deep and insightful it is, perfectly interpreting my attitude toward life. As long as I'm a salted fish, no one can force me to flip over anymore. He stood up and struck a pose. Isn't this way better than those other masks? In this era, obsessed with looks, I'll just use a salted fish to conquer the world. And Yao Yi facepalmed, not daring to imagine the scene of him wearing a fish head on the red carpet. But thinking about it, this truly fit his style. Going against the grain might actually work. Fine, as long as you're willing to work. I'd accept it even if you wore a toilet seat on your head. Just then, An Yao Yi's phone rang. After hanging up, her expression turned serious. What is it? Are those bastards at Skyfish up to something? He took off the mask and fixed his hair. It's more troublesome this time. And Yao Yi said in a low voice, Skyfish has teamed up with 3 major copyright companies in the industry. to launch a copyright siege against Star Radiance. They claim the songs you wrote before, though the melodies are different, have harmonies, chord progressions, and arrangement structures suspected of excessive referencing from their music library. Legally, it's hard to define, but they've used their connections with the industry association to publicly propose disqualifying you at the Golden Tune Awards next week. They're even calling for a total industry ban. A ban? He burst out laughing out of pure anger. Excessive chord referencing. That's like saying because I use Chinese characters to write, I'm plagiarizing the dictionary. Absolutely ridiculous. Skyfish is truly a cornered dog. Since they can't win in talent, they're playing dirty. The Golden Tune Awards right. He put the salted fish head back on, his voice low and full of danger. I was already too lazy to go to those boring places, but since they want me there so badly, he walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the brilliant night view of Shanghai. The glass reflected the giant salted fish head, hilarious and domineering. Then let's go play for a bit. By the way, let them know that some salted fish don't just know how to flip over, but they know how to bite too. Prepare a suit for me. What kind of suit? And Yao Yi asked. A tuxedo. He turned his head, staring at her with those dead fish eyes. I want to wear a tuxedo and a salted fish head to accept the Best Newcomer award. Standing on that podium and throwing the trophy right in their faces. Metaphorically speaking, of course. It'd be a waste to break a solid gold trophy. An Yao Yi looked at him, the clouds in her heart completely clearing away. She vaguely felt that the Golden Tune Award next week would become a nightmare for the entire entertainment industry, and the protagonist of that nightmare would be a salted fish. Mornings at Cloud Peak Manor were supposed to be quiet, but today the air was thick with the smell of gunpowder. He sat at the dining table with fried eggs, truffles, and an iced Coke in front of him. But An Yao Yi, sitting opposite him, was on the phone. Her voice kept low, but the coldness in her tone made the surrounding temperature drop sharply. What is the reason for the removal? Temporarily hidden during the copyright dispute. Yesterday you said the audit had passed. General Manager Lee doing business requires following the rules. Skyfish Media puts on some pressure, and you treat the contract like scrap paper. Fine. Remember exactly what you said today. And Yao Yi hung up, slamming the phone onto the table. A crack appeared on the screen. What's up? Was my song so good it crashed the server? He asked lazily, playing with the salted fish head, and Yao Yi took a deep breath and rubbed her temples. 10 minutes ago. Cloud Village Cold Music and Cool Cat. The three major platforms simultaneously removed Wishing Well, The Wind Rises, one in Compendium of Materia Medica. The reason given was a third-party complaint, even without actual evidence. The platforms locked them to avoid risk. That's not all. She opened the tablet and pointed at the news. 3 endorsement deals already finalized for Wan. Wan have been unilaterally cancelled. The variety show currently filming. The directing team reported her scenes had technical errors and won't be broadcast this episode. This is a full-scale siege planned in advance. Skyfish doesn't just want to ban you, they want to completely destroy Yawanwan's commercial value, forcing Star Radiance to submit. Those bastards have a long reach. He took a sip of Coke, his tone calm, but his knuckles holding the cup were white. Where is Wan Wan? Still in her room. She hasn't come out. And Yao Yi sighed. The hate messages on her phone made it crash. The bots hired by Skyfish are spamming the whole net, calling her the thief's sister, even making up stories about her being a school bully. His gaze darkened. Bullying. That clumsy girl who'd say a prayer after stepping on an ant? She's supposed to be bullying people. He stood up, walking across the cold marble floor, going straight to the second floor, to Ye Wanwan's room. The door wasn't locked. The lights were off, and the curtains were tightly drawn. Ye Wanwan was curled up in the darkness at the corner of the bed, hugging her knees with her head buried inside. Hearing footsteps, she trembled, like a frightened small animal. Recognizing his footsteps, she finally looked up. In just one night, that vibrant young girl now had eyes swollen like walnuts. Her hair was a mess, her eyes filled with fear and helplessness. Brother, let's stop singing, okay? Her voice was hoarse and choked with emotion. I don't want to be a star anymore. Let's go home. Back to our house. I'll work as a cashier to support you. I don't want to drag you down. He saw her gripping her phone tightly. The screen lit up with a blindingly hateful private message. You thief! Your brother is plagiarizing trash, go die already. Ye Fan stepped forward and took the phone. After seeing the message, he powered it off and immediately tossed it onto the rug under the bed. Saying nothing, he simply ruffled his sister's messy hair and sat down on the edge of the bed. He pulled a white rabbit milk candy from his pocket. Honestly, he had just casually grabbed it from downstairs. He peeled the wrapper and held it to her mouth. Eat it, it's sweet. Ye Wanwan took the candy, but her tears flowed even more uncontrollably. The salty bitterness mixed with the sweetness melting in her mouth. Brother, their power is too great. And said half of the showbiz world is targeting us. The two of us can't win this fight. Ye Fan let out a laugh, though it looked quite ugly. It had been a very long time since he'd been this angry. In his past life, he'd waded through the entertainment industry. He had seen every dirty trick in the book. But the ultimate taboo is bringing harm to family. The line of human decency had been crossed. He originally just wanted to lie still like a salted fish, eat his fill, and wait for death. Occasionally writing songs to make some extra cash was enough. But now someone wasn't letting him sleep in peace. His only relative was cornered and trembling. Juan, remember this. His voice was very soft, yet it felt like a massive boulder dropped into a deep pond. In this world, there are only salted fish who don't want to flip over. But there's no such thing as a salted fish who can't flip over. They say I'm a plagiarist, that my talent is spent. They say we're not on their level. A fire ignited in his eyes that made one feel terrified. Stop crying. He stood up and pulled back the curtains. Blinding sunlight flooded in, illuminating the floating dust motes. Since they don't want to let us live, then none of them get to live in peace either. He stood against the light. His usually half-closed eyes were now wide open. The sleepiness was gone, replaced by two burning flames that inspired fear. Stop crying, go wash your face. Isn't the Golden Tune Awards tonight? I'm taking you there. To do what? Ye Wanwan asked. Perplexed, Ye Fan's lips curled into a fierce smile to crash the party. Half an hour later, at the recording studio in the villa's basement. This was a private domain, built with a massive investment from Manhwa Yi, soundproofing capabilities comparable to a bunker. He called Manhwa Yi down. For the next 10 hours, this studio belongs to me. No one is allowed to disturb me. Not even you. He stood before the control desk. His lazy aura completely vanished, leaving only a strange, high-pressure fanaticism. What are you planning to do? An Yao Yi looked at the thick stack of blank sheet music in his hand. They've taken down all my music, claiming my catalog isn't sufficient, right? He picked up a fountain pen, the nib pressing hard against the paper as the ink bled. Then I'll give them a blood transfusion. If one song isn't enough, then 10. If 10 aren't enough, then 100. I'll use music to crush them to death. Crush them in the most literal sense. In 10 hours. And Yao Yi was shocked. How much are you planning to write an album? He didn't turn back. An album that can blow the entire C-pop scene apart and send them all back to the Stone Age. Thud. The door slammed shut. The red light above the door flickered on. Recording in progress. And Yao Yi stood at the door, listening to the faint piano sounds echoing from within, the strumming of a guitar, and screams that bordered on madness. She suddenly had a premonition that after tonight, Skyfish Media, and even the entire entertainment industry would change. As the seconds and minutes ticked away, there were only 2 hours left until the Golden Tune red carpet started. In the basement of Cloud Peak Manor, that red light had been glowing for 9 straight hours. An Yao Yi paced anxiously in front of the door. The phone in her hand had rejected countless calls, asking whether they would attend. In her heart, she knew full well, if he didn't make it to the red carpet in time, Star Radiance Entertainment tonight would completely become a laughingstock for the whole industry. The thick, heavy soundproof door finally made an unlocking sound. He stepped out, his face as pale as paper, eyes sunken and hair disheveled like he'd been struck by lightning. His whole body looks like a dried-up corpse, with all its life essence sucked out. But what he was clutching in his hand felt as heavy as 1,000 tons. It was 2 freshly burned master discs, along with a thick stack of manuscripts on top, packed with musical notes and lyrics. Is it done? And Yao Yi asked timidly. He didn't answer, just stuffed the discs into her hand, his fingertips trembling uncontrollably. This was a physiological reaction. After excessive energy consumption, the memory bank from his past life had been violently cracked open. For 9 straight hours, he frantically extracted top-tier masterpieces of every style in school from his head in one go, completing the arrangement and demo recording. This was absolutely not a workload that a normal person could endure. There are 10 songs in here. His voice was hoarse, as if he'd swallowed a handful of sand. Register the copyrights immediately. Immediately. And Yao Yi held the discs, feeling her fingertips burning hot. He smirked, showing a tired but incredibly arrogant smile. These 10 songs have no style limits. Rock, folk, R&B, it's all in there. Didn't they say I'm a plagiarist? Then I'll drag out the founding fathers of every genre. Invite them all here to see what else they can make up. 20 minutes later, at the Golden Tune Awards at the Shanghai Grand Theater, both sides of the red carpet gathered thousands of fans and hundreds of media outlets. The flashbulbs flickered incessantly, lighting up the dark sky like broad daylight. A Lincoln limousine slowly stopped before the red carpet cameras. The door opened and Ye Wanwan stepped out first, exquisitely made up, yet unable to hide the exhaustion deep in her eyes. As she faced the cameras, her appearance still carrying a hint of shyness. Immediately after, he reached out and held her elbow firmly. The scene suddenly went silent for a second, then exploded with whispers and gasps, ringing out everywhere. He was still wearing that well-fitted casual suit, accentuating his tall and lean physique. But on his neck, he wore a giant salted fish head with a blank expression. Those dead fish eyes faced countless lenses, radiating a bizarrely eerie vibe of, who am I? Where am I? It's the salted fish guy. The male god really showed up wearing a mask. Oh my god, this style is so out of place. This is the Golden Tune Awards. But he ignored the surrounding chatter, linking arms with Ye Wanwan as he strode down the red carpet with the elegant grace of an aristocrat. If you ignored that hilarious mask, midway through it was truly a small world. Skyfish Media's deputy director, Lee Chendong, was leading. The protagonist of the plagiarism scandal, Wang Teng, along with Jaden, all looking arrogant, standing before the signing board for interviews. Seeing him approach, on his face, Lee Chendong immediately wore the smile of a victor. Isn't this our masked king of pop? Why don't you dare show your face? Scared you'll be recognized by your creditors? The surrounding reporters burst into laughter. Wang Teng also pushed up his glasses, mocking him. Someone's works got taken down, so naturally they have no face left. Wearing a fish head is fine. It fits your status. After all, a salted fish that flips is still just a salted fish. Ye Wanwan was trembling with rage. Just as she was about to speak, he held her back. He stopped and turned his entire body, since the fish head was too bulky, to turn independently to face Lee Chendong. From inside the fish head came a low voice, processed through a voice changer, carrying a faint hint of electronic static. Director Lee, I heard. You guys have been researching copyright issues lately? My rights? So what? Lee Chendong snorted coldly. We're just protecting industry justice. He nodded, the fish head wobbling slightly. That's good. I brought some new stuff tonight. Hopefully it can add some more material for your research. After saying that, he didn't bother with these jumping clowns anymore, leading Ye Wanwan straight into the hall entrance. As he passed by Lee Chendong, he paused and spoke in a volume only a few could hear also. In this industry, there's a way to die called being hyped to death, and another called being crushed by a god. Hope your hearts are strong enough tonight. The award ceremony officially began. It was the usual tedious process of leadership speeches and song and dance performances for minor awards. Technicalities didn't matter. He sat in the most eye-catching spot in the front row, simply because that fish head was so big it blocked the view of 3 rows behind him. The organizers had to move him to the very front. He slumped in his seat the whole time, even letting out a soft snore, captured perfectly by the live stream cameras. The comment section was immediately spammed with LOLs. Finally, the main event arrived, the Best Newcomer of the Year award. The MC held the envelope acting mysterious. The nominees include Jaden from Skyfish Media, Ye Wanwan from Star Radiance Entertainment, and the mysterious producer Male God. The big screen showed the clips. Jaden's nomination was an MV full of singing, dancing, and flashy effects. When it was Ye Wanwan's turn, the screen went black. Due to copyright complaints, the organizers couldn't play the original. They only played a snippet for singing a cappella in a live stream, a blurry screen recording of Wishing. But even this low-quality audio was clear and deeply moving, instantly silencing the entire hall. The winner of the Best Newcomer of the Year is the MC. Opened the envelope, his expression a bit stiff, then loudly announced Star Radiance Entertainment Ye Wanwan. Along with the Special Contribution Award, Male God, the applause was scattered. Clearly under the pressure from Skyfish, many didn't dare to show their support. Below the stage, Lee Chendong turned pale with rage. He had clearly sent out warnings. How was this still happening? It seemed there were still a few stubborn heads on the judging panel. Ye Wanwan linked arms with him and stepped on stage to receive the trophy. Her hands were still shaking, her eyes red as she bowed, unable to find any words. The MC brought the microphone to his salted fish head. Does the Male God want to say anything? He took the mic, stayed silent for 3 seconds, then spoke. I didn't actually want to be bothered. I just wanted to sleep at home. But some people won't let me sleep. He paused for a moment, his tone carrying a hint of arrogant impatience. Since you won't let me sleep, then none of you are getting any sleep tonight either. He snapped his fingers and the big screen behind the stage suddenly lit up. It wasn't the PowerPoint the organizers had prepared, but a folder interface named Revenge. This was what he had just uploaded in the backstage after hacking into the video director's system. Skyfish says my talent is spent, that I only know how to plagiarize. His voice gradually rose. So tonight I'll use this stage to host a new song launch. The first song is dedicated to those who love playing dirty tricks behind people's backs. The music swelled. It wasn't a ballad, nor was it national style, but an electronic beat that tore through eardrums. It was a real sound. The song exaggerated that he had never sung before. Amidst the exploding accompaniment, with a posture bordering on madness, the lyrics rolled across the massive stage screen. Pure chaotic mockery, an indictment against a hypocritical world. Every word was like a knife, stabbing into the well-dressed people below the stage. The second song, dedicated to those who think they have high-end taste, the style suddenly shifted. The piano notes flowed in like running water, carrying a faint sadness within its gentleness. As soon as the music started, the entire hall gasped. Industry insiders could no longer keep their cool. The level of polish in this song is textbook material. The third song, the fourth, he was like a man possessed. At the awards ceremony, he played the choruses of 10 songs back to back. Every single one was a masterpiece, each with a completely different style. Any one of them was enough to win the Golden Tune Award for the year. Jiangnan, 7 Miles Fragrance. Boundless oceans, vast skies. Below the stage, Lee Chendong's face was ghostly pale. His entire body slumped into his chair. It's over. How can this be called plagiarism? This is clearly bringing out the entire treasury of C-pop for the next 15 years in one go. That man in the salted fish head wasn't human. He was a god cranky from being woken up. As the ending of Boundless Ocean's Vast Skies rang out, he stood in the center of the stage. The light shone on the ridiculous fish head, but in everyone's eyes, his silhouette was as tall as a giant. These songs will be released site-wide at 8 a.m. tomorrow. He dropped the mic, the sharp screech tearing through the silence. Free downloads, I'm not taking a dime. I just wanted to hear the feedback. Can I go back to sleep now? Having finished, he stepped off the stage without looking back, leaving behind a dead silent venue. A split second later, the cheers exploded, nearly blowing the roof off. The lights at the Shanghai Grand Theater had dimmed, but the lights of the entire internet had just been lit. The live broadcast of the Golden Tune Awards cut off the moment he dropped the mic. But the footage of those final 10 minutes, where that man in the salted fish head tossed out 10 masterpieces like they were trash. That footage was clipped into countless versions, spreading like a wildfire virus. If you opened your social feed tonight, you'd see the world split in two. One half, frantically sharing clips of the salted fish guy, status updates filled with nothing but exclamation marks. The other half who didn't watch live were clueless, frantically asking what on earth happened. Did aliens attack Earth or something? 7:55 a.m. the next morning. Developers at major music platforms were on high alert, standing by at the servers. Boss, the traffic is abnormal. It's not even 8 o'clock yet. And the number of people waiting online has exceeded 30 million. Expand the capacity. Turn on all backup servers. Redirect all video segment bandwidth over here. It's no use. The numbers are still climbing. This is practically a DDoS attack. 8 a.m. The promised time arrived. An album titled The Salted Fish's Wrath dropped across the entire internet right on time. No fees, no member restrictions. Just a simple download option. 1 second, literally just 1 second. The country's largest music platform, Cloud Village, let out a tragic cry and went completely blank. Next was Cool Cat, then Cold Music. The servers of the three major platforms were like they'd been hit by a grenade, simultaneously entering a literal physical meltdown state. Crashed. They all crashed. In internet cafes, countless youths who woke up early to wait slammed their mice in frustration. This is the male god's level. Even the servers can't handle his heat. Inside Skyfish Media's headquarters, the atmosphere was even deadlier than a crashed server. The meeting room was packed with top executives, but not a single one dared to speak. Lee Chendong slumped in his chair, tie crooked, his eyes bloodshot. The screen in front of him didn't show stock prices, but the overwhelming wave of public opinion crashing down from everywhere. Skyfish Media, get out of showbiz. Apologize to the male god immediately. This is what real composing looks like. The secretary tremblingly pushed open the door and walked in. Director Lee, the PR department, says they can't suppress it anymore. Right now, no matter what statement we release, even if it's a weather forecast, the comment section gets trashed within 3 seconds. Also, Jaden just posted on Weibo announcing he's terminating his contract with us. What? Chendong bolted up, snapping his head up, his voice screeching like a eunuch's. That ungrateful brat. Usually, the company supports him so much, and now he dares to jump ship and run. The secretary kept her head low, not daring to look him in the eye. It's not just him. The three major copyright associations just sent letters, saying the previous copyright siege was a misunderstanding. They've withdrawn all complaints against him, and even hope to establish a strategic partnership with Star Radiance. When a wall is falling, everyone gives it a push. This is the truest face of the entertainment industry. Those 10 songs from last night didn't just blow the listeners away. They utterly crushed Skyfish, breaking the industry barriers they worked so hard to build. Over the past 15 years, those songs covered every mainstream genre and were all at the ceiling level. You used action to let everyone know that their so-called industry standards weren't worth a penny in your eyes. It's over, Lee Chendong muttered to himself. He knew the era of Skyfish had been ended by a salted fish. At the same time, at Cloud Peak Manor, the center of the storm, was sleeping and sleeping very soundly. The explosion from last night had drained too much of your energy. In the car, on the way back to the city, you slept like the dead. It was in Yao, Yi and the bodyguards who carried you like a corpse to your room. Not until 12 o'clock noon did an enticing aroma finally wake you up. You opened your eyes dizzily, following the scent down to the dining room downstairs, only to see the table covered in a massive seafood feast. Brazilian lobster king crab red grouper. It looked like an aquarium was having a meeting. You're awake. And Yao, Wai was pouring red wine into a decanter. Today she wore no makeup, her long hair tied casually, looking much less sharp and looking more gentle. To celebrate you slaying everyone in all directions, I invited a Michelin chef to the house for a fish feast, since you are the fish king after all. He pulled out a chair and sat down without ceremony, grabbing a crab leg. Don't go labeling me randomly. I'm just an ordinary citizen. Who was cranky from lack of sleep? Sure, ordinary citizen. And Yao Yi handed him the tablet. See for yourself just how much influence this ordinary citizen has now. He glanced at the screen. Out of the top 10 hashtags he occupied, 8 of them. And the style was extremely bizarre. Hashtag salted fish spirit. Inside, it was all artistic shots of people lying still for 6 years, ignoring the world. Countless people changed their avatars to the salted fish and changed their bios to his classic quote, "As long as I don't want to flip over, no one can force me." Online shops were constantly restocking the same salted fish head mask as the male god. Monthly sales had already surpassed 100,000 units. A subculture called Sang was sweeping the country at an unbelievable speed. What the hell is this? The corner of his mouth twitched. I was clearly releasing high-quality music. How did it turn into a new meme trend? Because you live the way they want to live, but don't dare to live. And Yao Yi raised her wine glass and gave it a gentle swirl. In this era of cutthroat competition, you're the first person who dared to stand on the Golden Tune podium and say, "I want to go home and sleep." For young people, this actually has more impact than your songs. He sighed and stuffed crab meat into his mouth. Whatever, as long as they don't bother me. And Yao Yi took a sip of wine, her eyes looking mischievous. "I'm afraid that's not possible. Skyfish has collapsed, but new trouble is coming." What now? He immediately became alert. Singers, directors, and producers throughout the industry are all using their connections, searching for me to invite you to write music. The offers being made keep getting higher and higher. Some are even offering a fortune for every word. Just begging you to write a theme song for their movie? No, wait, you refused immediately. I knew perfectly well you'd refuse. So I've already pushed them all away for you. And Yao Yi smiled. But there is one person's invitation that you might not be able to turn down, who even the king of heaven himself wouldn't work. On Yao Yi set down her wine glass, her smile fading. Her eyes were filled with an unprecedented seriousness, even carrying a hint of tension. His movement of gnawing on the crab paused as he looked up at her. The sunlight fell upon her, coating her in a soft golden border. He could feel that this strong and decisive woman was currently breathing a bit erratically. He wiped his hands. "Director Ann, didn't you hang up the mic? The files say that after taking over the company, you swore never to sing again." "That's because I hadn't met a song worth singing yet." And Yao Yi looked down, her fingers tracing the rim of the wine glass. "Back then, the company was swaying in the storm. I was forced to become an emotionless money-making machine. Singing was too much of a weakness." She looked up directly at him, her gaze firm. "But after hearing your music last night, I feel that if I don't give it my all while I still can, and sing my heart out one last time, I'll truly regret it when I'm old. I want to ask you to write a song for me. One last song. After singing this, I will completely retire to the background, to focus on being the boss for you and Wan. No, actually." The atmosphere shifted. Silence lasted for a few seconds. He looked at her and realized she was actually still very young. At 26, it was the golden age for a female singer. But for the sake of the family and the company, she had hidden herself in business suits and a cold mask for far too long. Yet the fire deep in her eyes had never truly gone out. He picked up another lobster. "You know my rules. My price is very high. And it depends on my mood too." And Yao Yi blurted out, "A shocking offer, 10% of the company's shares for you. Besides that, you can sleep for as long as you want. Even if you want to sleep on the floor at the office, I'll have someone roll out the red carpet for you." He raised an eyebrow. "Deal. However," he pointed at her, "I want to hear your voice first. My current singing voice now. Right now, sing a few lines a cappella. I want to know what's hidden beneath your icy exterior." An Yao Yi stiffened, took a deep breath, and without hesitation, opened her mouth to softly hum a melody. It was her breakout song, from when she first debuted years ago. Her voice was crisp and cold, echoing like a snow lotus on a high mountain, yet carrying a faint, subtle loneliness and fragility. This was a voice born with elegance and narrative depth, the voice of a legendary diva. He closed his eyes and listened to it all, his lips curling into a satisfied smile. "I'll take this gig, but don't expect me to write some loud screaming track. Your voice is suited for the kind of song that makes people want to fall in love after hearing it, and then want to get married." And Yao Yi was stunned. That was such a bizarre comparison. He smiled mysteriously. "Go down to the studio. Are you full yet? If you're full, get to work. I'm going to peel back your icy shell, layer by layer." In the basement studio, the atmosphere was much more intimate than his previous seclusion, carrying a hint of awkwardness. In the enclosed space, there was only him and An Yao Yi, a lone man and a lone woman. One was a famous professional sleeper. The other was a proud, untouchable female CEO. "Is it really necessary to stand this close?" Yao Yi stood stiffly before the mic. He stood just half a step behind her, one hand leaning on the music stand, the other reaching out to adjust her headphones. The distance between them was very close. They could feel each other's breath. His voice rang out near her ear, carrying a touch of impatience. "Don't move. The headphone position isn't right. Recording this song requires me to catch your every breath. Even a tiny bit of breathing noise will ruin the vibe." He helped her adjust the headphones, casually tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingertips accidentally brushed against her earlobe. She trembled slightly, her ears instantly turning bright red. "Director N, what are you so nervous about?" He took a step back and sat back down in front of the control console, regaining that lazy, dead fish-eyed look. "I'm the producer. You're the singer. In my eyes, you and that lobster from earlier are no different. You're both just raw ingredients." And Yao Yi gritted her teeth. taking a deep breath to steady her heart rate. Let's start. The music began without another redundant word. Let's enjoy this together. Once the song finished inside the control room, his fingers tapped lightly on the desk. Perfect. This is exactly the effect I wanted. And Yao Yi's vocal talent was top tier. Combined with her proud and cold aura, singing this kind of ethereal, floaty love song was a total game changer. And Yao Yi took off her headphones, only to realize she was in tears. She was never one to cry easily, but this song had pried open a tightly locked Pandora's box, deep within her heart, releasing all her suppressed emotions. Well, she wiped her tears, asking with a bit of embarrassment. The control room door opened, and he walked in, holding his familiar thermos. Without giving a direct critique, he simply handed her a tissue. Looks like this song needs an extra fee. Why? And Yao Yi asked, confused. He teased, because you just sang it like a free love letter. If I were the listener, I'd feel like you were confessing to me. That counts as mental damage, you know? And Yao Yi's face instantly turned red, like a ripe apple. Stop being so narcissistic. I was just getting into the professional headspace, okay? Sure. Professional. He didn't expose her. Hungry yet? The chef is still here. What do you want to eat? On Yao? Why change the subject to hide her embarrassment? Not eating, I'm sleepy, I'm going to bed. I'll sleep until I wake up naturally. Unless the sky falls down, don't call me. Having said that, he waved his hand and leisurely strolled out of the studio, and Yao Yi watched his retreating back, her gaze becoming even more tender. She picked up her phone and called the PR department. Get ready. At 10 a.m. tomorrow, release my comeback single. A comeback director and you're going to sing personally, yes. The song title is Legend, and Yao Yi's voice regained its sharpness, but with an added touch of warmth. Allocate the company's best resources for this song. I want everyone to know that Star Radiance doesn't just have a male god, but also a boss who is a perfect match for him. She hung up the phone. An Yao Yi put her headphones back on. Her voice echoed through the empty room. She smiled softly and said, "You fan, you salted fish? Don't even dream of escaping my hands in this lifetime."